Good morning. We are live once again, and I am so happy to be here with you. Welcome to another episode of the Happiness is Real morning show. I'm your host, Camilla Calberg, founder of Calberg Coaching and transformational coach. This episode is brought to you by Calberg Coaching, where we help executives create a better life on the other side of divorce. To learn more about who I am and my background and book a discovery conversation with me, go to www.calbergcoaching.com. And with this, let's go into today's episode. And I am so thrilled and happy and honored to be talking about the second phase of divorce, the actual unplug, and the importance of asking for help during any major life transition like divorce. And I can feel as I talk, and if you know me by now, my body's reacting as I'm talking about this because it is a big phase of the divorce, and you should reach out for help, because if you haven't been there, there are so many things that comes your way, and that is the reason why I bring this up. So with no further ado, let's get started. So I mentioned it a few times before, but I have never been in a relationship with having a child where I had to decouple. But there I was, and I was thinking, as I do, preparing for. It was difficult for me to be pregnant, and I've read books, and my partner didn't want to have a baby, and I was like, okay, what alternative do I have? That's always a solution. And I was reading up about this, but you know what? Didn't find, and I didn't look really, maybe there is a book, probably there is a book about how to decouple with grace and with pride, but there I was, and I had to navigate in this very new territory. And I will tell you, in reflection, it was, excuse me, it was an emotional roller coaster I never experienced before. And when you go about divorcing, a lot of data show up on your search list about the emotional roller coaster. They talk about divorce stress. And I would say, well, yes, it is really stressful if you don't have the right resources on your team. Because first, it is for me and some of my clients, the stories I hear from my clients is that it's a relief, right? Whew, finally, we're going through this. Like, he's moved out, or you moved out. In my case, I stayed, it was my house, my property. So we stayed and he moved out. I was so relieved. But you know what? At the same time, I had my daughter, or our daughter, and I had to take care of her, right? Because preparing her that now when we are home, some furniture is gone, and that is an emotional roller coaster for her. And so that you have to, wherever you are, if you're also grieving or you're blanking, when you're negative emotions, you have to heal first before you can help your children. But at the same time, you see your children suffering. So it requires a lot of you. There can also be financial disputes. I haven't heard any unplug, any decoupling where there hasn't been discussions, arguments about financial disputes, whether you have kids or not. How do you do that? I heard terrible cases with actually where I'm not going to put gender here because it's gender neutral. The work I do is the frozen money when the house is put on sale, and then the one partner who has devoted his life, it was a woman who was more on the aggressive side, right? Then that person moved to a studio flat. There's so many situations about financial dispute. That's why it's also important to have a financial plan on board, and that's why reason I'm going to invite in a financial planner private banker, how can we prepare before we're in it? That is so important. It's about house move. Why are you doing it? Right. And actually, when you found, how do you unplug then? Children living in two homes, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? And you might find as adults that plans us really well, but it's the kids, and the kids crave for stability. How do you crave for stability? I also know people who want their next boyfriend like now, and they forget. Sorry, but that's when I'm coaching. I'm coaching with a non-judgmental face, because that is a obligation as a professional or certified coach to be non-judgmental and non-judging, and I'm doing that. But it's like, remember your children, it's your goal. And then suddenly you maybe have to realize yourself, what about your kids? They are so vulnerable, our kids. And it's also about losing your friendships. Sometimes the friendships disappear from one moment to the other. There's a lot of family connections. It's also have impacts of children. There are so many things that happen at the same time. And on top of that, you have your executive job and you have to perform. And I'm always open and I'm always honest when I go on here. And I'll tell you, for a long time, when I was in this, I navigated. I was also crying when I saw how my daughter suffered. I also saw, and I thought like, okay, now you go to daddy. We were 100 meters from each other, but she didn't like how he showed up. So whenever I thought I had a moment for myself, I really never had it. I never knew when she was coming back, knocking on the door. So that forced me to, I force is a bad word, right? But it made me choose to stay at home and be present and just to wait for her to show up. And yes, some people say you devote your life to your children. Well, those of you who have children, and you may be, your relationship may be amazing, right? Because there are amazing relationships out there. But if your children are suffering, you suffer too. And that's what I've really experienced, that you have to make sure that your kids are right, and I am satisfied and happy, because then you can focus on what is important as well. Self-care, your job, your performance, right? That is as important. So there's just so many things going on. I was having my coaching practice at that point in time, and I considered being with my clients as my me time, as the space where I could just show up, and it was so nice. It was so nice to meet my clients and just be in that moment. And I forgot everything around me, everything around me. I was just really so present. That was amazing to experience. And my client didn't experience anything of that. At least I didn't say. And I continue to give value to my clients, which is very important for me. All right, but there came so there was a point, and you remember that where I had my glasses like this. Sorry, this is like, and there came I reached the point where I started to suffer. I started to feel very bad. I was strained by energy, like so many things coming up. We had this co-parenting relationship that didn't work. He was still very aggressive. My daughter didn't want to be with him, and the fights, and he blamed gaming me that I was not doing what was expected from me. I mean, and I came to a point where now it's enough is enough. And I decided to pull the plug. For it lasted for two weeks. I didn't know how long. I just knew that I needed a break. I really needed a mental break, and I just pulled it. I simply pulled it, and I sat there And I reflected. I sat in my lovely chair, looked out. We were at that point in time, we were living very close to a forest and a lovely golf course. And I was just sitting there with my cup of tea and just being me, just being me. I allowed myself to cry. And when I came to that point, I realized that I need help. I need help. And at that point in time, I didn't know what was coming my way. I called I said, okay, as an entrepreneur, I have my own insurance. So I want to make use of my health insurance. And you probably also have that, whether you're insurance, whether you are an entrepreneur or in your corporate environment, health insurance. But luckily I made sure that I had access to a psychologist, and I very quickly booked an appointment with a psychologist. And it didn't matter where it was, a woman, where she was based. I just got the very first psychologist available, who was also had a good understanding of divorce and the impact of children. Because we at that point in time was like 9 months down the road, and we were just really that 9 months down the road from actually having said, now enough is enough. And just a few months after, he actually moved out, and my daughter's well-being deteriorated. And so I met this woman, and we had some very good conversations, and some conversations and some things I have only shared with my coach and with my psychologist, because I'm also protecting my family, my mom and my dad, my sister, and my very close friends, even though they don't know everything. So meeting the psychologist really just gave me airtime to cry and tell how afraid I was. And I remember when she told me, because the situation was really bad, that she said, Camilla, maybe you have to go under, what are you going to go under, escape. Yeah, maybe you have to change your name. If it's that aggressive, it's like you have to do something really drastic to take care of yourself, like go to a crisis center. What? It's like, I don't do that. I don't do that. I have my clients. It's my space. But so I did already there. I knew, okay, I listened to her, and it was good to have these sessions. But I also knew at that point in time, at the very first meeting, that she was not the one that was meeting where I wanted to go, or was serving me really to the very deep end of the serve, and also who I want to become. I didn't want to end up in a refugee center or crisis home with my daughter. I mean, and going under, escaping from the earth thing is like, I can't remember what I'm calling in English right now. All right, so that's why I say that so many things, and you don't know until you are in it what you need. And that's why it's so important to ask for help and prepare before you actually are in it. All right, another thing, and here's a really good tip, is that if you haven't got a health insurance for your children, even though in good times, if you want to start developing in the good times, because my language here, if the shit hits the fan, you better have the right tools in place. Don't change what needs to be changed when you are suffering. That is not the best place, because you don't have the energy, you don't have the focus. But I learned it the hard way. What I'm going to talk about just now, because my daughter was suffering. My ex had the belief that I was manipulating every information I shared with him. He believed that I manipulated, making my daughter feeling unwell, making her unwell, that I was an unstable mom, and blah, blah, blah. That verbal abuse just really, like, it was never ending. So there was no financial support from him. And he want documentations and you know, okay, we're talking about a person here. It's like, so I invested my own money. Because, like, first of all, I said, I need help. I need help. So I said, okay, I'm gonna buy a health insurance because I'm not gonna get financial support from my partner, my ex-partner. But only to realize that I had this quarantine of 6 months. Boom. So make sure that you have the right health insurance for your children when you need it, because when you need it, it goes half a year and you cannot wait. That's really my invitation. You have to, you get to act now if you want to create a better life. Don't wait half a year, right? What happens? What are the consequences if you wait? It's like when people come to me for coaching and say, well, we wait 3 months, 6 months. What are the consequences of waiting? It's like you're putting your life on pause. Life is too short to be put on pause. So, so what I did was I invested myself. And I rang different psychologists with skills helping children through trauma or healing trauma. And some of the very popular psychologists had 6 or 10 weeks a wait list of, I could get an appointment in 6 to 10 weeks. All right, but I need help now. So luckily, I found a psychologist close to school, and with some really nice conversations, I got an appointment, and I'm so happy because we reached January, and my daughter's well-being was like going down the drain, and I can just say that hadn't I had help, hadn't I reached out for help, I don't know where I would have been. I don't know where my daughter would have been and how fast she had healed. But also all the things that I learned like what psychology is good at and where I can step in as a divorce coach and help, because it's a really powerful mix to work with psychologists and working with a coach. And every coach has a good coach or a therapist, and I am so happy to have these women. It's women I have on board where I can go and cry, because that's me. You can't cry in front of you. You can, but it's good to involve your parents in what's really going on. It's good to involve your brother or sister if they want to listen to you, because they're most likely they have an opinion about it, and they may be also afraid. That's why it's so important to ask for help, because this phase 2 of divorce, is such a big project. And if you listen to my live yesterday, I was talking about you need to get help, because as a film director, you're not. I have never heard about a film director who had done his movie or her movie on his or her own. They have a big team around them to make this amazing movie. You are creating your own movie. You're creating your own legacy. It's your life. You're the CEO of your life. Take this seriously. I really invite you to be really serious about going through divorce and make that project a nice and inspiring and insightful project, because it can be, if you work with the right people, if you delegate what needs to be delegated, what's necessary to be delegated to those who knows what this all about. And then you can focus on your career, you can focus on your job, on your leadership, on your team, and your children. And there's one thing more you have to focus on. It's not about have to, but you get to focus on when you delegate other things to your team on your divorce project, and that is self-care. Self-care is so important. I cannot stress and emphasize how important it is, because the divorce process is the project it takes years, right? And different phases of it. Now I'm in the co-parenting project phase, and that lasts till I don't know how many years. And but self-care. If you sabotage self-care, where are you gonna get energy? Where are you gonna get energy that will get you going, that will help you find inner peace, that will help you say, okay, this is what I do, this is what I do, and I know how I'm going to do it. And if you don't find inner peace, if you don't find the energy, how are you going to nurture your career? It's like, that's why it's so important to uncover and talk about out loud, to ask for help during divorce in any phase. But it's just really now I'm peeling the onion here and helping you understand um, how to what's going on and during the phase 2 of divorce, and why you should ask for help. And as we're doing this live, I just realized that my tag is here. Ask for help before filing for divorce. Just ignore that. It's actually when we're in it. But I think you get this right. So, and you get the point. So ask for help when you're going through in your phase 2 of divorce, if you haven't already done that. It's really, really important. It's really important. And that takes me to say, remember to be prepared ahead of time. Prepare ahead of time. You don't know what you don't know, but you know what you don't know when you work with the right people who've been there before, who've been there in your shoes, right? Then it's so much easier to prepare, like getting the right health insurances up and running, making sure that you have your financials, your finances in your own bank accounts. Make sure that you're ready to rock and roll when you're actually in the unplug phase. Unfortunately, I hear so many cases where there is a codependency on financials, and that makes the unplugging very difficult, very hard. That's also why I know some cases, and statistics shows that it takes more time to actually decide to uncouple. Is more difficult for women than men to uncouple if you are financially codependent. So I was just about to say, never be financially codependent, but be mindful, be conscious when you decide no longer to be financially codependent. It's really, really important. But everything is possible. Everything is possible. We also hear amazing stories where where men and women uncouple and they sat there and they had kids, right? And then, okay, I'm going to create a family. One day I need a job. How do you do that? They go to school and they learn and train and rehearse, and they are becoming amazing entrepreneurs in their niche. So everything is possible as long as you trust yourself and as long as you work with the right people who can help you thrive. That is so important. So with this, that ends the episode of this morning show. If you found value in this, please take a moment to drop me a comment. I love the comments that you share, as well as take a screenshot and share it on your favorite social platform to help your friends and loved ones thrive through major life transitions. And always remember, happiness is real wherever you are on your divorce journey. When you get the right people on board, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, and the next chapter of your life can truly be your best one yet. It's my honor to be on your journey with you and help you, support you through the process. This wraps up today's episode. Remember to tune in daily for inspiration and practical advice to help you create a more thriving, happy future on the other side of divorce. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.